Jim Lemons, who's a kind of a legend at Second, and I know in the kind of pediatrics and medical
Absolutely.
world of
We love
Indianapolis.
Jim.
when I when I told him that you and I have been in regular conversation, his bright eyes and smile just sort of stretched across his face, and he said, "You've got the best." And I know that your research work and your work in public health and your work kind of on the front lines has put you on what I'd say is kind of the leading edge of the scientific and medical community, and how we respond to viruses of many types, but particularly right now, this one. And I wonder, I've been thinking about the nature of hope. And it seems to me that one of the things this virus has done is kind of brought us to the limits of human knowledge and understanding. Just the idea that there is something that we can't fix by our own human ingenuity or brilliance. And that to me is the place where all our good efforts run into the truth of our humanity and the fact that we are not God. And so there's something of the sovereignty of God and the providence of God, and that our ultimate hope is not in humankind, but in God. And so I guess I would just ask you to think a little bit with us about how you understand hope in this moment and where you see signs of it in the work that you do.
That is such a great question, because if we didn't have hope, then we would be in a very, very, very depressed place. Because it's just so difficult right now for everyone. And I mean, I think it's difficult for me, like, as I said, I have a job, things are stable, I can get from work, I'm fed, I'm clothed. So it's so much more difficult for so many people. I think having kids and jobs that take you away from the kids, but they need to be in school and it's online. It's so complicated right now. So if there weren't hope, we'd be in a very dark place. And for me, hope comes from several sources. One is the people I work with. So I told you I'm very inspired, very, very inspired by them. And I always have been, but I just feel like, wow, during this, boy, did they step up to the bat. And then another actually is that, it's right now, those of us that are doing research or clinical care have a lot on our plate. So it is a busy time and sometimes a little overwhelming. But I think most of us are also aware that many people wish that they could do something during this. We feel so helpless. And so if you're working, and I don't just mean in healthcare, anything to deal with the effects of the virus, that gives you hope because you're doing something for other people. And then as a researcher, things that are difficult are fascinating. Like, I really, really wish this novel coronavirus never existed. I don't care how fascinating it is, but it does exist. And when you look at the science behind why it did what it did and what the precedents are and how we might respond to it and what seems to work and what doesn't work and the breakneck speed at which new discoveries are being made and stuff like that, it does, ingenuity, creativity, it is just really inspiring, that people can think so broadly and do such wonderful things and in the end can maybe make a difference for other people. And I think for people of faith that the sense that carries you through, regular times, that you do work for more than the paycheck or the recognition or something else. You're doing it as to be the hands and feet of Christ, as a service unto Christ. That is always a touchstone.
Yes.
And when things get particularly rough, you think of that. And I struggle like everyone does with, where is God in all of this and why did it happen and so on. But I think that all that, and that that is not unique to this. When you see a kid with
Mhm.
cancer or something like that,
Right.
these things are profoundly wrong, and they're very bothersome, and you don't understand why they're permitted to happen. But I think that when I see your work, the work of other people, that is making the world a better place for people, and that it's inspired by and driven by and uh, I don't know what the right word is. It's breathed by
Mm,
God,
mhm,
and it's not something that any of us is doing on our own.
mhm.
And that if we, kind of allow that greater power to carry us through this, that it can do that. That's always a source of hope.
Mhm.
Um, and it just somebody like Jim, for example,
Mhm.
I just you just see him. You just have to talk to him to understand. Like, this is a person who is driven by something that's far, far greater than his own accomplishments. And I can think of that for many people, and it's a it's a sense of um, God at work in the world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that is just inspiring.
Yes. Oh, it's very well put. Very well put. Um, so I've got two more questions. You know about one of them, and then there's one thing I want to kind of add on. Uh, I am wondering, one of the things that Second seeks to do is be supportive of those within our community who, no matter what their struggle is. And I'm thinking specifically about caregivers, those who are in the medical profession in any way. I'm also thinking about, particularly right now, teachers and preschool and all those who work in any kind of school setting. Um, what do you think we as a church can be doing to support caregivers right now? And then specifically for you and your team, what can the church do to be supportive of you or to be in prayer for you and your team?
Oh, that is so kind of you to think of that. I think prayer is the biggest thing, and uh, I and everyone just appreciates it more than you know, and know that it does make a difference to the work we do.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like um, that. Um, I just feel like there are a lot of people out there doing a lot more than I am. Um, and I'm trying to think, because I feel like, um, what do you do beyond prayer? I mean, prayer is the most important thing. Um, Many, I think the people I think of that I think like, wow,
Mhm.
um, uh, there's got to be some way to to lessen the load is people with kids like yourself and Sarah, because if they were going to go to school and now they're home and you still have work and stuff like that, that's a real challenge. And so healthcare worker with kids, I think if both of them are in healthcare, especially, so what could the church do to help that? It's so challenging though, isn't it? Because like things like, well, open a daycare, like, no, you can't do that. I mean, the
Oh,
COVID just knocks down so many of the practical ways that you could help. I think prayer, cards, because many people are not in a position where they need something materially. It's more about the feeling of being supported. But then I think for the people who are in lower wage jobs or have lost a job or whatever, have kids at home, like for those ones, I don't know exactly how you identify those people or ask them to identify themselves, but I feel like there are many more people in that situation than we realize,
yeah.
and some of them just don't know where to turn to, and the church should be a place they turn to for both spiritual and material sustenance while they're going through this. So
Yes.
I guess that's what I think is like, if there's a way of putting out a
Mhm.
really clear message, if you're in need, doesn't matter what kind, just let us know and we are here for you, and we'll figure out how to do something to make your life less stressful. That would
Yes.
be great.
Well, let's do that right now. So if there are those in our community, or if you know of folks who have those needs, we, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we invited folks to give to a fund that was specifically for outreach and support within the community, and those funds are available. And
Great.
we're just so aware of folks who have had unanticipated and really even undreamed of changes in their life situation over the last several months. And so we are blessed because of the generosity of our church with some resources to be helpful in those ways as well. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to name that, because it's a really important part of what we do as well.
That's wonderful.
So I did a little bit of background research on my interview subject this evening, and I discovered a wonderful book of poems that you wrote.
Oh, my poem.
And when you mentioned earlier that your first love or your sense of call was to writing, yes, grants and applications and those sorts of things, but your poetry is really stunning.
Thank you.
And there's a book you've written, Something Small That Matters, and I've just had a chance to kind of leaf through, but you have a phrase in one of your poems that I think so deeply speaks to the idea of vocation, and particularly perhaps the call of faith to us in this moment. And that phrase is, "What is your pledge to this sacred world?" What is your pledge to this sacred world? I think that's a question that people of faith should ask in every time. I think it is the question. We have been given the gift of faith. We have been given the gift of God's grace. Now, what is our pledge in return to that? Because this world is the theater of God's glory. This world is where God has placed us to live and serve. And I wonder if you were to give us a charge to your faith community at Second, if you were to give us sort of the pledge that you would hope that we would make to this sacred and beautiful and broken and troubled world, what kind of charge would you give us?
I think the charge that I would give is to serve the underserved and protect the planet. Those are the two things that I think are just overwhelmingly the most important, and they're not unrelated to each other. So my challenge to myself is working in those two things. Like, what do we do for those that have the least, and how do we keep this sacred world beautiful for your kids and people's grandkids and the generation after that? Like, how do we do that? I feel like those are the really pressing questions of our times. And I wrote those poems for a society that I belong to, and I was giving an address to the society, and that was the last poem. I incorporated poems into the address, which was a real kick for me, because, as you say, it sort of came full circle. I got to use writing in a different way with this group, and I put it out there because it's a group of do-gooders. They're like the tropical medicine and hygiene. They're all out there, just like many of them have been my heroes for many, many years. But I put it out there as a challenge to them and to me. And I do feel like that particular thing, like when COVID-19 hit, it's all the more, relevant. So that's I guess that's a charge I put to myself and then to everybody else, is what are we doing on that score?
Yes. When I was a senior at Duke, the reading, the big read for the whole community that year was the book about Paul Farmer, Mountains Beyond Mountains, by Tracy Kidder. And Farmer came, he's actually a Duke grad, and came back, and he and Tracy Kidder had this fantastic conversation. And in the book, and then that night, so I was sitting sort of at the far back of Page Auditorium, and happened to have a note card or something like that, and a little pen. And when Paul Farmer spoke this sentence, which is also in that book, I wrote it down, and the sentence was, the idea that some lives matter less is the root of everything that's wrong with the world. The idea that some lives matter less.
So true.
And, he, like you, has been about that work of kind of joining medicine and care for others and a spirit of service, and really in his case, especially a desire to sort of save the world. And that ambition is not too great for people of faith, in my view. It's in fact precisely what we're called to do, one small act at a time, one gentle word at a time. And so thank you for that charge, which I pray we will all take seriously and to heart. And thank you for your time tonight, Chandy. It means a lot to me, and I know a lot to the Second Church community as well. And we appreciate you and the work that you do on behalf of all of us, and specifically your wisdom and guidance for our church right now.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, Second has been a wonderful church home to me and Andy, and we have so appreciated your ministry, Shelley's, the ministry of everyone at the church to be the, face of Christ and the hands and feet of Christ in Indianapolis. And, as you said, we just need that now more than ever. So I appreciate your taking the time to do this.
Of course.
And I'm just so grateful to you and the church for everything you do.
Likewise. And thank you so much. And we will be in touch very soon, I'm sure.
All right. Take care, Chris.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.